Welcome to Everything Casual, bringing you original football casual videos from the golden era of the 80s and 90s, right up to current day. Football away day stories and historic clashes between football firms. Subscribe so you don't miss out. We upload videos every week. Today we are looking at one of the most brutal incidents of crowd violence between two firms in the 70s, Aston Villa versus Glasgow Rangers in 1976. The fixture was supposed to be a friendly, but try telling that to the over 70 injured at the ground, 18 seriously, stab wounds, broken bones, severe cuts. Or to the 30 police officers injured, including one with a fractured skull, 130 officers deployed, alongside 90 reinforcements, and the 50 lads arrested. The following was taken from a local media outlet reporting the incident. It was an afternoon to remember for all the wrong reasons when crowd trouble erupted during a friendly on October 9th, 1976. Villa Park and Birmingham city centre suffered some of the worst scenes of football hooliganism ever witnessed on this patch. It occurred during a so-called friendly match between Aston Villa and Rangers, which had to be abandoned on 53 minutes when crowd trouble erupted. Using the Sports Argus and Sunday Mercury reports from that weekend, Matt Kendrick looks back at what was dubbed Sick Saturday. This is what one football fan that was actually there had to say. I watched as a young fan was knocked to the ground and kicked unconscious by up to 10 assailants on the Villa Park pitch. It was the most sickening episode I saw in the midst of disgraceful scenes, which caused the abandonment of the match between Aston Villa and Glasgow Rangers. After 53 minutes, scores of Rangers fans arrived on the night sleeper train from Glasgow, which itself was delayed because of trouble en route. Some fans were thrown off at Wigan. Coaches began arriving at Villa Park as early as 3 a.m. Some offered £1.50. Fair daybreak special offers for the 700-mile round journey. Police complained to road traffic commissioners over coach company deadline breaking. Coaches had been ordered not to arrive at Villa Park until 60 minutes before kick-off. Most of the 50 coaches that made the trip were in Birmingham up to 9 hours before that deadline. According to reports in the Sports Argus and the Sunday Mercury, as soon as the off-licences opened, the fans bought whiskey, champagne, wine and beer and began an onslaught that terrorised hundreds and halted public transport for thousands. Some fans were so drunk they could hardly stand. One 15-year-old boy who had been drinking bottles of red wine collapsed unconscious. 4 hours before the kick-off, two teenage Rangers fans had already appeared in Birmingham Magistrates Court and been fined £135 for using threatening words and behaviour. Chief Superintendent Colin Sutton, head of Aston Division, said, "Drink was the major factor. They had been drinking most of the day, wine, spirits, beer and even champagne." There were some incidents during the first half, as Villa led 1-0 through a Dennis Mortimer goal. But it was at half-time when trouble flared, with hundreds of Rangers fans on the Holt end. At the interval, supporters at the back of the Holt end surged towards the front, forcing frightened supporters to spill onto the pitch. By that stage, some injured fans were being carried clear on stretchers, and the second half had kicked off by the time the field was cleared and all fans returned to the terraces. On the Holt end, brick-car, stones and bottles were thrown by yobs, completely ignoring the game. When Frank Carradus put Villa 2-0 up at that end of the ground on 52 minutes, the violence erupted. The goal sparked another surge as missiles were launched. It is estimated that more than 200 Rangers fans invaded the pitch, and running battles broke out on the field with some Villa fans joining the fighting. 2 supporters were stabbed during the mayhem. In order to escape the pitch invasion, Villa boss Ron Saunders and Rangers counterpart Jock Wallace waved their players back to the dressing rooms, and both teams ran towards the tunnel. Great Bar referee Derek Civil abandoned the game in the interests of safety. Police were given emergency powers to open the gates and turnstiles to allow frightened fans to flee the ground, and a loudspeaker announcement was made to clear Villa Park and the vicinity of the stadium. Edna Thorpe of Station Road, Aston, near the ground, said, "I have lived here all my life, but never have I seen anything like this. They were behaving like wild animals, fighting and running riot all over the place. I was petrified and just didn't know what to do." Over 70 people were injured at the match, 18 seriously. Several fans, including girls, were treated for severe cuts and head injuries from missiles. 2 had stab wounds, and more had suspected broken bones. 30 police were injured. Several fell and 4 were taken to hospital, one with a suspected fractured skull. 30 St John ambulance men treated the injured. First aid rooms overflowed. At the height of the battle, 130 police were deployed at Villa Park. 90 extra officers had been drafted into the city to cope with the trouble. At the ground, police confiscated cans and bottles. Police made 50 arrests during the day. When the violence broke out inside the ground, police with crash helmets were involved in up to 5 minutes of fighting to clear the ground. Dog handlers emerged from the Whitton end to force fans back, and when some semblance of order had been restored at Villa Park, police lined the track. Away from the ground, mounted police chased troublemakers through the streets. The hooliganism was not just contained to Villa Park and the surrounding areas. It also spread to Birmingham city centre. Some well-behaved fans went ahead of the mob and pleaded with city centre shopkeepers, "Please, close your shops. They are behaving like animals." A spokesman for Peter Dominic's shop in Priory Ringway said, "These lads came in to buy drinks and we sold it to them. They caused no trouble in the shop. Our business was quite a lot higher than most Saturdays." But an angry Birmingham shopkeeper fumed. Trade is bad enough without the busiest day of the week being plagued by hooliganism. Why Aston Villa felt it necessary to fix up this match, which meant importing Scottish rowdies, is beyond us. 8 buses were vandalised with windows smashed, and in one case, a roof damaged. West Midlands Passenger Transport stopped buses running on 9 routes, which ran towards the ground, leaving lots of Saturday shoppers stranded in the city centre. A mob of fans pelted shoppers with bread after snatching a basket of rolls in a subway. One woman and her 17-year-old daughter had their hair pulled and milk showered over them by a mob in the Bullring. Most of the public houses and bars in the city centre closed their doors. Teddy's, the city centre pub, was cleared by police after 150 fans started hurling glasses in a bar brawl. The front door of the Red Lion pub in Lichfield Road, Aston, was ripped off its hinges, while other pubs were also vandalised. Michael Evans, landlord of the Golden Cross at Aston Cross, Aston said, "I have never been more terrified in my life. They went berserk. The language they used was vile. They grabbed bottles from the shelves, wouldn't pay for drinks, and ripped down the curtains." Alan Bennett, the Aston Villa club secretary at the time, said, "It is our job to arrange attractive football matches for the public, and I think we have done that today. Aston Villa and Rangers are 2 of the oldest football clubs in Britain, and this is the first time they have played each other for 90 years. Former Aston Villa chairman, Sir William Dugdale. I don't regret it, staging the match at all. What I do regret is all the trouble. Rangers Vice Chairman Willie Waddle. I am disgusted." When that happens, your guts fall down to your knees and your tongue just closes up. It is the louts that are killing us. It is a bloody tragedy. Sports Minister Dennis Howell, a spectator at the game, having telephoned the Home Secretary who immediately ordered an inquiry into the violent scenes, said, "I found it absolutely appalling. It is impossible to be too strong about the disgraceful behaviour which I was unfortunate enough to witness." Inside Villa Park, violence erupted in the stands. Bottles, bricks and stones were hurled. Fans tore up paving slabs to use as projectiles. At half-time and after Aston Villa's second goal, hundreds of Rangers supporters poured onto the pitch, leading to wide-scale fighting and the abandonment of the match in the 53rd minute. This is what one Rangers fan that was at the game said. "There is lots of mention of the violence during the match, but it had kicked off prior to the match. In the street behind that stand. Kickings were delivered there all before the match." Attempts by Birmingham police to organise the vast number of Rangers fans started to break down a full 12 hours before the start of the game. We nearly got the jail twice on the way down on the train. Loved it in the park and after it. Effing mental. And this is what a St. John's ambulance crew member said that was won the scene. "I was summoned to the first aid room just 10 minutes into the match. What I found was reminiscent of a battlefield. I was taking care of a man who was stabbed in the side. He didn't feel the stabbing. He only knew when he felt a wet shirt that it was blood." It was estimated that up to 30,000 Rangers fans had found their way to Birmingham one way or another. Coach loads had been arriving through the night, as well as many on the overnight sleeper train from Glasgow, and by mid-morning they'd drunk the city dry, were pissing through people's letterboxes, and running all over the Aston Expressway. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you subscribe, you will be notified when we release a new video. It could be your firm we make a video about next, so don't miss out and hit the subscribe button. You can find me on Facebook or email me if you have a good story to tell. See you next time.